Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to the Fairly Odd Co-Parents podcast. I love the bass of that song. Gets me every time. Gets me going. It gets the people going. Um, this is episode 4, and I'm Ronnie,
And I'm Nessa.
and we are back at it again with another episode. This episode is the kids.
Yeah.
Well, don't sound so excited.
Of course. No, sorry. I have something in my throat. I don't want to be rude on Mike and be like, yeah. Yes. No, of course. I love my children. They're amazing.
Um, all right. Let's get it started with the
Your
dad
dad
joke.
joke. Yeah.
Dad joke of the week.
Let's hear this corniness. Let's go.
It's a dad joke. That's how you know it's good.
I
All right.
know.
We're going to go classic.
Oh, God.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Sham.
Sham who?
Mm.
What? Are you talking about Shamu? No, stop. Free Willy? Are you Free Willy?
That's my whale noises.
Cue Michael Jackson.
Sorry, that wasn't as good. But
Disappointed.
I need to work on my whale noises.
Apparently, you need to work on some jokes. Get some jokes together.
That was a great dad joke. You know what? I will not let you falter my dad joking. That was amazing. All right, let's get into our next part of our introduction, our co-parent story of the week.
Yeah. So our co-parent story of the week this week is about our younger son, Sebastian. And so Sebastian,
He also goes by Seb. He also goes by Bastion. He also goes by Bash.
who was going by Baby Seb, Seb.
Yeah, he's got many names.
Got a lot of nicknames, yeah. But he prefers to go by Seb.
Mm-hmm.
He has also told me that he will allow people to call him Baby Seb, but only Eduardo. Because Eduardo is the one who calls him Baby Seb. And he's like, only Eduardo calls me that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Not for you, Mom.
Yeah. So Sebastian is our younger one. He is 6 years old in the first grade. And Sebastian apparently has not been doing his homework. And so we got informed a couple weeks later that he wasn't doing his homework. So first of all, I was like, what do you mean? I've been seeing him do homework, and I've been like, there was something that he was doing. And unfortunately, I don't get like a copy of his homework, so it's not like I can verify if this is like the proper packet or whatever.
Or if this is all the homework he has to do.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So there was just a little bit of a disconnect. And so I informed you, I informed Eduardo, like, hey, Sebastian has not been doing his homework. And since I am, gone on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, evenings, I reached out to my team for support and was like, this is the plan. And I appreciated that, like, everybody stepped into gear and was like, okay, what do you need from us? Kind of thing.
Yeah, because when I initially heard it, it was like, Sebastian hasn't been doing his homework. He has like 5 packets he has to make up this week, which is a lot for a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn, he's been covering it up. Because when we'd ask, hey, do you have homework? He'd be like, nope. Or he would be doing very little of it. So we're like, oh, okay, he's finishing up his homework. But we don't get to see how much he has or how much he doesn't have. We were
Yes,
just going
we would
based off
talk.
of his little innocent heart and off of his word.
I fell for
Uh,
it. I know.
he he played us dirty.
Little
Um,
punk.
so
You're like,
immediately, yeah, immediately we went. I went into like, okay, how do we fix this? How do we correct this behavior moving forward?
yeah. So I came up with a plan, and as like since I have a background in teaching, I was like, okay, I know how I can set him up to where there's not a lot going on at once, but also what can we do for going forward to make sure the homework is done. And so I reached out to parents or I reached out to the teachers and was like, "Hey, I'm aware he hasn't been doing his homework. I apologize. On Fridays, I'm going to message you and ensure that he turned in his homework, so that going forward, there's that accountability." And then if you could just let us know like what packet to look for, because the packets are numbered. And so
Mhm.
like, can you tell me the number packet that's going on, just so that I make sure we're doing the right packet? Because there were some packets that he had in his backpack that he was like, no, that's not the packet. And then I would reach out to the teacher, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that one was from like 2 weeks ago, you can throw it away. And so it was just like, making sure everybody's on the same page. And
Yeah,
then I would write the day of the week. Like he needs to do this page Monday, this page Tuesday. Um, and Eduardo had said right away, like, hey, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm not available on Tuesdays because I'm working until 7 o'clock at night.
yeah.
And then Junior was like, well, I can FaceTime him, and he will put his iPad in front of him, and I will be watching, and he will, you guys have a dialogue when he does his homework, right?
Yeah, so immediately I started thinking like, okay, I know Nessa has school herself,
Hmm.
right? And Eduardo was working too, and I
Hmm.
was like, I know most of my evenings, if I'm not like flying or traveling, they're available. So I was like, this is my opportunity to step up as a co-parent and their dad, and I thought it was gonna be a great bonding moment too.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, let me know what's the time to call them when they get home. It was around 4:30. I
Hmm.
call him and we set it up where I'm physically in front of him via FaceTime. And we go through his packet and he
Yeah.
reads me his instructions and he tells me what he's doing. And then I make sure he does it correctly, or like I keep him accountable because there's like a response, a sentence needs to be like written, and he
Yeah.
will write like a one word response. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, what'd you say? And then he would like show me, and I'd be like, bro, that's not it. Like, that's not a sentence. You need to
Yeah.
like make an
Yeah.
actual sentence.
Hmm.
So it keeps him accountable.
Hmm.
But recently, something that happened is he was like, Dad, can I let you go? I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, no, dude. Last time we did this, you decided not to do any of your homework. And I was
Hmm.
like, and you're getting some of these like incorrect. So it gives us an opportunity to make sure that you're doing it correctly.
Right.
And he was just like, ugh. And
Yeah.
then he continued.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and
and
then we what happens now is Thursdays and Fridays when I am home, I get to check his work that he's been doing what he's supposed to be doing on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then or on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I give a report back to you like
yeah,
thanks for supporting, and he got it all done. So,
yeah, it's been great. It's worked out really good. We've
yeah.
corrected that situation.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
So that is our co-parent story of the week.
mhm.
I think also the intention of this too is to hear anybody else's out there that has a story they'd like to share, a success story or a story maybe they're having some issues with.
Mhm.
Maybe we could help in some way, or maybe somebody else could help.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
feel free to throw it out there for us on our socials. Okay, so the purpose of today's episode is we're doing key takeaways from our kids.
Mhm.
Big things are just kind of what have we learned about them being their parents, what have we learned about the kids, and then what have we learned about ourselves as co-parents and parents also.
Mhm.
Um, So first off, let's just kind of go. I know we've mentioned our boys a few times, but let's go into kind of the differences between the two. Armani and Sebastian is their names. Armani is oldest, he's 10, and Sebastian is the youngest, he's 6. Um, Armani is definitely a daddy's boy. Sebastian is definitely a mama's boy. Uh, Mani tends to lead with his mind. He's very he just he will be in his brain. Sebastian tends to lead with his heart. Um, very different dynamics. Um,
Mm,
Armani is really much more naturally intellectual. School does not really challenge him too much.
mm,
He's it's he kind of just really gets through all of his work pretty quickly. And he gets really good grades.
mm.
And
He
it's
never
almost a
has
little.
homework.
He never has homework because it's just always done,
Yeah.
and during class.
Mm,
Sebastian has a little more. He has a little more. It doesn't come as easy. He has to work a little harder
mm-hmm,
with doing the work,
mm-hmm,
but he's still brilliant in his own mindset.
mm-hmm.
Monty is more all over the place in his mind, while Sebastian is more all over the place physically. Uh, they're it's very very different. Um, Mani is not as physically gifted, but he's very hardworking when it like comes to sports and um, playing team sports. He is one of the first people to be up front. He is doing his best. He's helping his teammates. He's very good at that. Sebastian is more physically gifted. His mobility, everything kind of comes a lot more natural for him. Hand-eye coordination, those types of things. Um, he's just more of the like wants to have fun though.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but he is physicality. It comes a little more easier for him. Mani embraces a lot more verbal affection, um, and Sebastian he's just a hugger. He's a cuddler, and
Yeah.
they're both very thoughtful, kind of in their own ways. But
Yeah.
um, is there anything you want to add with kind of just a summary of the boys?
No, I think you hit it. I think one word I would describe Armani is he's an analyzer.
Yes.
He's in his mind. And so when it comes to sports, when it comes to relationships, and when it comes to school, he will analyze it, and you can verbalize intellectually what his expectations are and how, break things down in a
Hmm.
conversation, and he will get it. And Sebastian is more of a promoter, and he understands things more of like like an emotional level. And if you show him, and if you were to physically give an example, he understands it better. And so
He
like
picks it up really quick. If you give him demonstrate for him, he will pick it up extremely quickly,
right,
um,
right.
which is great. Um, all right, so those are our boys. Let's get into our key takeaway number one for them. So, key takeaway number one is we have learned what works for our specific children. And we're also going to go into a little bit of learning what works for your stepchildren if you're in that position.
Yeah,
Or maybe you're in a relationship and they're not your stepchildren quite yet, but maybe you're in, your significant other has kids of their own and you're kind of in a position to naturally be in a kind of a co-parent space.
yeah,
Um, so we'll get into specifically with Armani and Sebastian what we have learned about them, because what works for Armani doesn't always work for Sebastian. What works for Sebastian doesn't always work for Mani.
exactly.
And with Mani, what we have learned is Armani will push boundaries. He will push rules. He will push everything if he's in a new environment, if he's with new people, if he's with new guidance, he will push everything to see how far he can go with things, to see what rules will be held and what won't. And if you don't hold him to the fire, he will run through it and be like, cool, I get to do this. And
Yep.
it's great in a aspect for not in school and not like in a household where he needs to listen. It's great if he wants to create businesses, if he wants to persevere in whatever thing he's like aiming to strive to be,
Yeah.
because he will not let anybody tell him no. He will keep trying to get around whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
It does not help with school.
or
Like,
or parenting.
or he, so for us, so, Armani, we have learned that we have to hold him to the fire, because if we don't, he will just keep pushing through it. He will
Yeah,
walk right through it.
that concept of gentle parenting, I appreciate it and I respect it, and it doesn't work for Armani. Armani, I will say kindly and respectfully, the expectation, the reminder 3 4 times, and
Yeah,
it's like money.
he needs a little bit more firm.
Yeah, he needs a firm
firm.
hand.
He needs
Yeah.
a little more firm hand. Which is, and that's something that we've learned with him. Like
Yeah.
he has to be held accountable regardless, because if he's not, he knows he can get away with whatever it is he
He
wants.
tries to get away with. Yeah.
Well, I'm speaking of environments,
Yeah.
people. Like when it comes to me and you, we know this.
Like, no,
Uh,
cut
like,
it.
no, bro,
Uh,
no. You
yeah.
don't get to try and pull this on us.
Uh,
We know you. So that's something with Monty. Also,
yeah.
typically Monty wants to know if we're doing things beforehand. He wants to know so he can analyze it. He wants
Yeah.
to know the why of things.
He doesn't appreciate surprises.
He does not, unless it's something like,
A
I don't know.
purpose surprise, but like, you're expecting this for dinner and then I like change it up, or we're expecting to go someplace and we decide, oh no, we're not going anywhere, and we don't communicate that to
Yeah,
him. He has a difficult time to adjust to it. He will adjust. It'll
yeah,
just be a little bit more difficult than others. But once you tell him, he's like, okay, and he will flow. You just got to give
yeah.
him that heads up.
You gotta give him the heads up. Typically, he wants to know the why to things. He wants to understand like why, because he will ask like why. Well, why? Why aren't we doing this? Like, but like how? Like, why aren't we doing this anymore?
Yeah.
And he wants to know the why. He wants to understand.
Mm.
And sometimes he won't because he either wants something so badly.
Mm.
But most of the time, if you explain things to him, he will analyze it, digest it, and then usually he's good with it.
And one
Um,
of the things I wanted to add on that too is I do know that you don't owe your child an explanation to everything. And
right.
so his whys don't always get answered. And I get to, we get to have a conversation of, you know what, bud, this time I'm not going to explain myself and you need to just do it, or we're just going to get this done. And you get to be okay with that. And I think that's a great opportunity to learn how to cope with
Yes.
just not knowing, because a great lesson for kids to learn is life isn't fair, and you're not always going to get to know why or get to
Yeah.
understand what's going on or get your way.
Right.
And this is a great opportunity to self-soothe and to ground and to cope with the suck, if you
Accepting,
will.
like,
Yeah.
hey, accepting that this is something you just have to do.
Right.
If I mean, because society in general, there's going to be times where we have to do something we don't really want to do, or we just don't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy, or we don't like, and a lot of that is perspective and mindset and how you go into things. But there's also a quality to doing something, doing it well, even though you don't want to.
Right.
So that's something we also kind of do enforce, where we're just like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, dude, we just need you to do it. Like,
Right.
or sometimes it's he doesn't understand something, and it's like, hey man, like we're your parent. Trust that we are telling you this for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just the way it is. Because let's be honest, if your kid, like sometimes the parent knows what's better for your child. Like if you're otherwise, if your kid really wanted to eat sugar all day, every day, because that's really what makes him happy and he loves and he really likes that and he wants it, and he doesn't understand why you won't let him have it, that's like one of those times where you're like, no, bro, like it's just not good for you to eat sugar all day, every day. And they may
Mm-hmm.
not understand it, but you know it's what's best for them.
Right.
So that's like an instance, right, where they have to just accept that,
Mm-hmm.
you as a parent.
Yeah, one of the examples that I would say for that is Armani has chosen to be vegetarian recently. Him and I have some medical conditions that it hurts when we eat meat, and so for me, I have found I personally love eating meat. So I could not be a vegetarian. I choose not to be a vegetarian. I choose to eat chicken and find plant-based meat so that I can enjoy that. And Armani was like, "No, I can be vegetarian." It didn't really affect him that much. However, we got to have that conversation where it was like, "Okay, this is your choice and I will support you, and you also get to be cognitive and mindful of your protein intake and your iron intake, since that's not going to be something that you're going to be lacking in that, since you're not going to be eating meat." And so when he's like, "Why do I have to eat spinach? Why do I have to eat broccoli? Like, why do I have to have more vegetable servings? Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to eat tofu?" Like, well, you want to be vegetarian, and so this is what comes with that choice.
Yeah.
And when I had that conversation with him of the importance of his nutrition, he was like, "Oh, okay." And so I'm like, "You're gonna have spinach in yours," and he's like, "Okay." Like, "Yep, I know it sucks," and he was accepting of it. So,
Yeah, I've been super impressed with him and his choice to be vegetarian. It's
hmm
like he really hasn't skipped a beat at all
hmm
with it. He's
right,
just committed to it, which is amazing.
yeah.
Um,
And he's told me like his stomach hurt. He actually shared with me this morning. Bash and Seb wants to eat chili, uh, Frito pie for dinner, and I was like, "No, we had that the other day. Like, let's take a break from chili." And Manny was like, "Yeah, it's hurting my stomach," and I was like, "Mine too." Okay, cool. Like, let's not. Thank you for speaking up, because
yeah,
I thought it was only me, and so when it's just me, I'm like, I'll just make myself something. I'm not gonna make my entire family shift their
something.
diet
Yeah,
because of me. But yeah,
yeah.
so just anyway, as you were.
Um, all right, let's get into Sebastian. Um,
Yeah, so Sebastian tends to not like getting into trouble. He is my sensitive child. And with that, being firm doesn't have to be as firm as Armani. With
yes,
Armani, raising your voice, getting into a very in depth conversation gets to happen because that's the way that he will listen. But with Sebastian, I just got to give him a look, and he's like, I got to give him that mom look. I'm like, "Sebastian," and he's like, "I'm sorry."
Ye-
I'm like, "Yeah," so it's not as firm. He's definitely still gets punishment. He still
yes.
is corrected. So please don't get the impression that like, "Oh, he's the baby, and so we're gonna like take it easy on him." No,
No, they both are held accountable, and they both receive consequences to
right. Just
whatever
the
behaviors.
and the accountability just looks different is what I'm trying to say. And so yeah, and so so correcting him is easier. I don't have to be a mean mom all the time with Sebastian, whereas with Monty he kind of takes brings it out a little bit more often
He will. He would
with
just
his
take
stubbornness.
advantage. That's really
He's
what it is. He would
yeah,
just take advantage if
yeah,
he can.
yeah.
Um,
He's a little more stubborn.
they're both can be very stubborn. Monty can. Well, let's be real. His
Yeah,
parents can be a little stubborn themselves.
yeah.
Um,
And then he also oh sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say that. With Sebastian, if if you get upset with him, he will feel it. Like he will feel it if he's going to get a mark in class or school. He is just like, it is devastating for him.
Cries. He just
Yeah, he will
cries.
cry.
Yeah.
He feels it much differently than the way Armani does.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to be aware of like, okay, I mean, we don't have to, we just have to correct him. And typically he's, will follow suit to that.
Yeah.
If we come down on him very hard, it will be emotionally really hurtful for him and hard for him.
Hmm.
And there's times where it still calls for that.
Yeah.
That he did something that he really shouldn't have,
Hmm.
and it's fair.
Yeah. And then I would say Sebastian thrives in structure. He really appreciates understanding and knowing what his boundaries are. Once he knows his boundaries,
Yes,
he stays within them. He doesn't really have a tendency to push. And I don't
yes,
know if that has to do with his age or if that is his personality, but Sebastian
yeah,
is definitely like you give him this boundary, this is your limitations, and he's good with it. Like, okay, well, I can still do, this and
yep,
that. And he will move forward. Also, in that sense of structure, he learns really well in structure. The school that
yes,
the boys go to, he thrives so well, and he really progresses at such a great pace because of the structure that they provide at school.
hmm,
And so when he's home and that structure is continued and implemented, I feel like he thrives too. When he goes to a relative's house and there's not a lot of structure, he
yeah.
does get into a lot of trouble.
He will get into
And
more trouble because of it.
yeah. And not to, say anything negative about that. It's just that we know Sebastian gets to have structure in order for him to thrive. And
Yes,
there are some kids that who the more structure they have, they actually decline or they actually, digress, if you will. And so,
you
you know,
know, it's funny you say that because I feel like that's at times the case with Armani is
yeah, I
that
think so.
he is very limited by school and
Hmm.
he could flourish outside of such a boundary driven place.
That and like
But
I think I recognize that at home. The more I come down on money, the more that he
he wants to rebel against
yeah,
it.
and the more he digresses too, because he kind of gets
Yeah.
unmotivated as well.
Yes,
And
that's
so
true.
when I kind of just let him be, he already has um this internal like instinct of monitoring himself
Hmm.
kind of thing, whereas Sebastian needs monitoring when it comes to that. So
he just does well with guidance, structure, boundaries,
yeah.
and he really thrives in them. I think I have a story for that.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect example of just kind of them in general.
Mm.
So I took them fishing one summer, their first time fishing, and uh, I was teaching them both, hey, this is how you put the worm on the hook. Hey, this is how you cast.
I
When you
remember
feel a
that.
bite, you tug on it and you reel them in. And I was giving them step by step, like this step, this step, this step, this step.
Mm.
Monty is very much the let me just do it. I'll figure it out. Like I'm gonna just do it, and like I don't need all this like structure and like I'll get it done, and I'll like whatever. And usually, and he had a much harder time catching fish.
Mm.
Sebastian, he was so focused on my instruction, he did every step.
Hmm.
And he caught it like I was putting a worm on Monty's hook, and he's like, I got one," and I was just like, "Damn, that was fast." And next thing you know, like he's telling Monty the steps. Monty, you have to do this, and then and Monty's like, "I know, Sebastian, I know." I was like, "Oh gosh!" It's like, but that's kind of like the structure and
I
that
can't
and
even.
like the instruction that
Yeah.
Sebastian really does well with. And
Right.
with Monty, it's like he wants the free range to just do it and figure it out on his own.
Hmm.
Um, And sometimes it's about, for him, it's more about like seeing what it is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what's working, not working.
Yeah.
He just ended up
Yeah.
playing with the worms the rest of the day. Like he
Monty?
had, yes, he had more fun just goofing around with the worms. And I was like, dude, let me play with the dang worms.
And
Like
he has a book on bugs anyway, so that's par for the course, in my
he ended
opinion.
up just playing with the worms and had a blast
Uh,
with that. He was more
with the
interested in
worms.
that.
Mm.
But that's kind of like a good,
Yeah.
that's
That's
kind
a
of a
good
good
example.
description
Oh
of
man.
them, you know.
I mean, they both had fun in their own way, so I
Yes,
appreciate that.
yes, it
Yeah.
was a successful trip regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Wasn't about the fish.
no, but it was cool. It was, and of course, Monty did end up catching a fish, but it was just it was very different. It was
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah. Nice story. Thanks for bringing that back. That was good. And then also I wanted to talk about my stepchildren. So I do have two stepchildren with Eduardo. I don't refer to them as my stepchildren. I refer to them as my bonus children. I've always referred to them as my bonus children, and I know what it's like to be a stepchild, and so that negative
Like label and
connotation, yeah,
connotation. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like I didn't want them to feel that way. And I hope that they don't. I really hope that they know that they are loved and they are supported in this household by both Eduardo and I. And so I also got to learn what worked for my bonus daughter and my bonus son. Respectfully, I will not be mentioning their names out of privacy for my husband and that part of our extended family. And so my bonus daughter is the oldest of the bunch.
Hmm.
She's 13, middle school, so she's a preteen. I met her when she was 9 going on 10. And we got to bond over Harry Potter. We got to bond over our love of reading. And she's very much like me, whether she wants to recognize it or admit it. But her and I love to follow rules. We love to know what our rules are and know what our boundaries are, and get recognized for following that rule and recognized for doing a good job. And so so I've gotten to see that part of her, and she also takes after me and wanting to be in all kinds of different activities. She loves that she's in dance, and she's into Pokemon, and she's into chess, and she likes to play sports, and she likes to play Minecraft. And so I don't necessarily have those same interests, but like I had a lot of different things that I was involved in school also, and so her and I get to relate in that way. But she also doesn't respond well to a strong hand. So her and Sebastian have that similarity of you just get to like, I guess, call her out, if you will, on like when she is being disrespectful or when she is not following directions, and
Hmm.
she'll take that on, and I'm sure she probably beats herself up more than we do. She's pretty hard critically on herself.
Hmm.
And so when I also learned that, it was like, hey, I still love you, and I'm still proud of you, and you know we missed the mark this time, and we'll get it better next time.
Hmm.
And so I got to recognize that with her. And then with my bonus son, he is a little stubborn, like Armani. And so you get to repeat yourself a couple times with that one. And so, and for a while, I mean, I'll admit, it was frustrating. It was like, are you not listening, or do you just want to be defiant? But it was like, no, he needs that reminder. And so
Hmm.
getting to learn about my bonus children in that way, and getting to understand them, since they're not biologically mine. I didn't get to grow and learn with them since they were babies to now. And so I listened to my husband's feedback and listened to um, what worked and what didn't, from what he learned, and also seeing like what works and what didn't work myself, with their interactions with me, with their interactions with the people around them. Um, and so, learning how to support each of them individually, as well as together, was something that I got to learn myself. My bonus son, uh, he loves words of affirmation. And so, like, telling him good job and celebrating him when he gets like 100s on his reading tests, and when he does really well academically. He also struggles with his academics, kind of the way Sebastian does. It doesn't come as natural,
Mhm.
but he is great with math, and so it's like he's like, that was easy, and I'm like, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was easy. Look at you, and with my bonus daughter, she's like Armani. They're naturally very gifted intellectually, and so um we had to explain to her. She was like, "Why do I get celebrated when I get hundreds?" And I'm like, "Cause it's easy for you. Like it's not a challenge. We're celebrating not that they got a 100. We're celebrating that they overcome a challenge. And
Yes.
so when you overcome a challenge, that's when we're celebrating you. I'm not going to celebrate Armani getting 100s either, because it's not a challenge for him. The challenge is reading 5 books in a week. My bonus daughter reads 5 books in a week easy. But when Mani does it, it's like, oh my God, you read 5 books. Like, that's amazing. But
Mhm.
for my bonus daughter to, like, go out and do something that stretches her, that's where it's like, oh my God, you did something that's like out of your comfort zone, and that stretches you. And so I'm so proud of you for doing that. And the same with my bonus son too.
Mhm.
And so I believe that it was my responsibility, and it still is my responsibility, to learn my bonus children, to develop that relationship with them, because they're the child, you're the adult. You have more experience, you have more knowledge, you have more skills than they do. You have the emotional skill, you have the stamina to go through a little bit more than they do. You have the resilience. And so be that parent to them, be that adult to them, model the behavior, and show them that they are cared for. Maybe you're not ready to love on them just yet. I was totally ready to love on my bonus children right away. I love children, and so opening my heart and my home to them came very easily and natural for me. And so I always take it as my responsibility, and yeah, I just strive to continue to make them feel at home when they're here. So
Well said.
thank you.
Um, so I think that kind of wraps up our first takeaway.
Hmm.
Learning your child, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, where are they at, like really learning and taking away from them instead of just making them fit your personal box.
Yeah.
Um, that's really important. Key takeaway number two: we have learned that we have individual strengths as parents. We individually are stronger in some areas. Like me, I am stronger in some areas than maybe where Nessa is. Nessa's stronger in some areas maybe than where I am. So it's funny the way we did this is that, the strengths that we wrote down, I wrote down what I thought Nessa's strengths were, and Nessa wrote down what she thinks that my strengths are. So we're going to share that with you right now and kind of talk about them. And since my name is listed first, have at it.
Okay. So yeah, so I feel like Ronnie's strengths, is that he does a really good job of instituting respect and discipline with our boys. That's something that we both agree on The boys get to say ma'am and sir, please and thank you, that kind of thing. But having a level of respect as well. You don't talk to your parents in that way. You don't talk to adults in that way. Like, Junior checks them and is like, hey, watch your tone. Don't talk like that. And also isn't afraid to implement a discipline with them. Hey, dude, you were given warnings, and so now you get to receive a punishment or a consequence. And so, um, you know, Junior doesn't yell at them and doesn't like isn't this like machismo Latin Latino dad. Like he has a soft spoken way of talking with them, but is also very firm. And so I appreciate that Junior shows them there's another way to be a dad rather than just yelling and hard all the time. Um, Also,
I think
Junior.
another thing with that, with the something that I genuinely enjoy when I have them here with me
Mm,
is, our mornings are very structured. Also, when we're up, we're getting dressed, we're brushing teeth, we're brushing our hair, and we're getting ready for the day. And that's just something that I like to practice. And it also kind of just creates that, like, okay, there's structure, or we're doing, um, we're getting, like, we get to be responsible at the start of our day, if that makes sense. So I like holding them to those things, like in the mornings. Did you brush your teeth? And like, if it's a yes, I'm like, okay, let me see your teeth. And it's very easy to tell if they did not brush their teeth. So it's
yes.
like little things like that that I enjoy kind of holding them the fire to, or keeping them disciplined on.
Mm. Yeah, and now I think it helps that Junior's a morning person,
Yeah,
so that probably
that helps a lot.
that's not my forte. I'm like, you're awake. Hi, good morning. Uh, Also, I would say that Junior always gives such positive feedback and positive affirmations. He looks for, like you said, he looks for those nuggets, and so he looks for that positivity to share, so that it's not just negativity all the time. It's not just we're not just like coming down on you 24/7. Like, you did great here, and there's some areas that you get to work on, and that kind of thing. So I appreciate that he like brings it back to that, because I myself can get lost in the weeds and be so upset or furious that it's like, "Ugh, yeah, no, you're right. Like, it's not just negative. They definitely are great boys.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so you're just being a little butthead right now. And so you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And then when Junior comes into town, it's such a big welcoming. It's such a big hello. Even Eduardo has been involved where he's like, let's surprise them big. And like, but like Eduardo and I, we respectfully let the boys go and say hello and keep our distance so that you guys have that moment, but you greet them with this huge hug, and like, you guys hug for such a long time, and you guys get to like have your little moment.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that, like, you make the boys feel so important in that moment. You don't let somebody else come and like get in between you or interrupt. Like, I'm saying hi to my boys.
Mhm.
That's my focus. And so I love that, because the boys don't get to see you as often, and so when they get to see you, it's it's a big deal. It gets to be about them and you.
Mhm.
Um, and then, of course, if something comes up, if I bring something to your attention, you're always ready to listen. You're always ready to hear, hey, this is what's going on right now with the boys. You're not you're not like, "Ugh, what now, Nessa? Like, you
Mhm.
got something else, because that's definitely something that I've seen other parents do, where it's like you always got something, you're always complaining about something, like there's you're griping again, you're complaining again, and the fact that I'm like, hey, something's going on with the boys, you're like, oh, what's going on, what, like, tell me more, and tell me how I can support you in
Hmm.
in fixing it, or correcting it.
Yeah, I think it's just more about like finding solutions, or
Mm-hmm.
how do we correct this, or how do we set up our kids better?
Mm-hmm.
Like what can we do as parents to set them up
Yeah.
for success, or not repeating a behavior, or
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
because I know some, I mean, I've seen it myself, where there's a lot of gaslighting that could happen. Where if I bring something up, you could easily project it back on me and be like, well, what are you doing to create this? What are you doing to
Oh
cause
yeah,
this?
for sure.
And, uh, yeah, I get to see that. And it's like they're bringing something to your attention,
Hmm.
and we're trying to work as a team to fix it with our child. This isn't necessarily always a reflection of me and my parenting. Sometimes kids are just kids, and they're
There's a lot of
mis-
influences in kids' lives.
yeah, it's
There's
not just
teachers, there's
not just
other
your parent.
kids, there's
Hmm.
um,
Social media, there's TV, there's
YouTube. Like
uh-huh.
there is a lot of things that
And
can be
sometimes kids just
influences.
do things.
Hmm.
There's no influence at all. Sometimes kids just are learn things on their own and begin to do it. It's called evolution. And so I appreciate that there isn't that gaslighting that happens where I bring something up and you blame me for whatever the issue is. You more of, like you said, let's find a solution. Let's come up with a plan.
Hmm.
And so, yeah. And then I think that ties into my last strength for you would be that you back me up when it comes to the boys. They don't see that. I disagree with your mom, and like, you, again, like, back talking about me, or criticizing me or diminishing me is not something that has happened.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that, because it sets us both up,
Yeah.
for such a negative relationship with each other, but as well as our kids. Because I can tell you personally from my own experience, when my father did that with my mom, I eventually learned, like, I hate to admit this, but I eventually learned how to undermine my mom because my father did it. I
Hmm.
eventually learned how to do get around my mom because my father literally showed me how. And so, like, you would be teaching that to our boys. If
Hmm.
that's what you did, you would teach them how to undermine me as the mom, but also as a woman. They're boys, they're learning from you how to treat a woman, how to treat a partner, so I appreciate that you have my back, and that it's not a, a struggle or a power dynamic of one over the other.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. Okay, that's your turn. All right. So some of the strengths for Nessa that I've recognized through this journey is that Nessa is amazing at instituting manners from our boys, and like I admire that because that is something that my mom did for us for so long, of opening doors for people, yes sir, yes ma'am, hi, and being very respectful in that. And Nessa is quick. If one of the boys is like, lazily saying hello or yes or yeah to somebody, and it could be even like, we're at dinner, and the waitress or waiter asks a question to one of them, and they're just like, yeah, like lazily, you're on them like, no, like, yes ma'am, like. And I think that goes so far in life for people in general, that little
Mm-hmm.
thing. And it's a really great setup for them for their futures. And I like really appreciate that a ton, and how quick you are to just correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I appreciate about you is that we're both kind of on the same page when it comes to accountability, but you're very good about hearing the sides. You're very good about hearing whether it's a school issue, the school side. Then you're very good about hearing um, our kids' side, getting that information from them, giving them an opportunity to speak their perspective, and um, and at the same time, when accountability is due, you hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate that too, because for me, I look at it and you're not just saying, "Hey, cool, school said this, you're in trouble." Like, no, you're getting all the information that you can. You're kind of digesting all of it and coming to a determination. And maybe it's something, the school is misperceiving something. And so, maybe it's not something that we need to, uh, maybe we have more of an issue with the school. And maybe it still warrants an accountability or a consequence. You're very, very good with judging that and also filling me in on it. So I appreciate that you give the boys that opportunity to speak their perspective. Um, and then something that I have noticed is that you do amazing with greeting the boys with smiles and affections. Whenever you see them, whether it's picking them up for school, and this is just what I've witnessed, whether it's picking them up from your moms, whether they're coming back from somewhere or whatever, you're always so like happy to see them. You're like, hi, and you're smiling, and it just provides such a warm like environment and welcoming, and it just I can see it in the boys. Like when you greet like that, it makes them like brain up,
Mm-hmm.
and even for like Mani is not always he doesn't always show his emotion outward.
Mm-hmm.
But even him, he will like it and enjoy it, and he will smile, and then he'll be like, okay, like, all right, like, okay, thanks, ma, and then like go off on his own. But it's for me, I think that is so important, and I appreciate that you do it regardless, even if Monty's like, oh my god, mom.
Yeah.
Um, it just shows, and he's proven it over time. That stuff still matters to him,
Yeah.
even when he reacts in that way.
Right.
Um, so I love that that's something that you continue to do. Um, Other things are if something comes up with the boys, you're immediately initiating discussions. You're immediately wanting to talk about it, and letting me know what's going on. And I appreciate that a lot because it provides me an opportunity to be a father. Um, and I like I am deeply like grateful for that because that
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to do that all the time. Dang, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna get emotional right now. I don't get to do that all the time, So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm given those opportunities, it means a lot to me. So, and that's why I'm so ready to like, okay, how do we, what can we do? How do we make this better? Like, what can we create to
Mm-hmm.
help this situation? Like, we're their parents. Like, we get
Yeah.
to figure it out. We get to see what's working, what's not working, what can't, like, we get to explore that. Um,
Yeah.
so that's always something that I deeply welcome and am grateful for. And then also the other thing, you're the last thing that I have for you is that this is something that I'm much more internal. I'm much more like Mani, and I think that's why we connect so well. But you're ready and willing to go mama bear when you need to. Like you're so ready to go mama bear. I got my cubs. Like it's time to protect them, and you're ready to jump on it. And for me, I'm much more mellow. I'm much more even keeled, um,
Yeah.
and so I'm not personally just like ready to get into that mode unless like I'm pushed to it. And so I appreciate that strength in you of just like ready to go to battle for them when you need to.
Hmm.
Um, and that's just like, it's like those things, right? Like we all each have our strengths, and being able to like utilize those when we need it is it's perfect, because there's sometimes when maybe the boys need a more gentle, firm, um, way of things, and that's where I tend to like fit in a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they need like a much more like rapid response, get it done now.
Right.
And sometimes that's where you're better with it. And kind of working on our strengths has really helped us, just parenting in general. So
Yeah.
those are definitely our strengths that we have noticed. And hey, you heard it from each of us about the others. So we're not just blowing air in our we're not just tooting our own horn. Is that, I
Yeah.
think that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Dang.
That's how we say it. You got it. You got it. I believe in you.
Okay, let's get into our last key takeaway,
Yeah.
before we wrap this up.
Mm,
Key takeaway number 3: sometimes the kids are a reflection of yourself.
absolutely.
Like we said earlier, there's a lot of influences,
Mm,
in their lives between school, social media, YouTube, all of that stuff, right?
yeah.
What they watch. And sometimes it's us. And
Yeah.
so we get to, a lot of times, really get to be introspective and reflective of ourselves, of what am I putting out there for them? What
Right.
kind of model am I being for them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know something that has been said to us with kind of our climber journey a lot of times in getting coaching is, you can't see in others what you don't see in yourself.
Absolutely.
Um, and that goes a long way,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know there's something that we had discussed about recognizing old traits or habits from your childhood.
Yeah.
It's very easy to kind of live those things, right? Becoming your parent and
Mm-hmm.
like creating those same cycles. Um, so a lot of times it's really beneficial to see, where are you at in this cogwheel? Like, yes.
Yeah. So no, yeah, I was gonna add onto it too, like what we mean when we say you can't see in others what you yourself don't see in yourself, or what you have in yourself. It's really about like you're looking in the mirror. If you are able to recognize something in others, whether it's a child or an adult, you can recognize it because you've done it yourself, either presently or in the past. I can recognize stubbornness because I myself am stubborn. I could recognize a short temper because I used to have a short temper. There are things that you can recognize in your child because you yourself have that trait. Either you used to have it when you were a child or you currently have it now. And so that's what we mean when we say you can't see in others what you don't see in yourself. And so just recognizing that if you can see something in others, let that be a reflection of yourself, but also utilize it if you've overcome that trait or that opportunity. Um, how did you overcome it? What kind of tools did you do? And maybe you can teach that to your child so that they can overcome it quicker and they can become a better version of you.
Well said again. You're 2 for 2.
I know.
um,
I didn't know I was so smart.
Another thing too, though, is like also being open to feedback, and growing in that manner.
Hmm.
I think something, when I say that, like being open to feedback, I'm going to give another story, because this is something that hit me deeply, and this was probably when Sebastian was maybe 4.
Hmm.
there was a time where I had them over the summer, and Armani and Sebastian had been fighting, and they were just like being little boys, and they were just, I think I was like trying to make dinner, and they were just bickering. Mani ended up hurting Sebastian. Sebastian was crying, and then I came out just like got upset, like in the moment, right? Just
Yeah.
mad, and like I yelled something, and then Sebastian was like really, it like affected him a lot, and then I left the room, and then, a little bit later, maybe 5 minutes later, I just like, "Ah, man, like this is not the father I want to be.
Mm.
I don't want to react like that." And I came back and I was just like, I apologized to them. I was like, guys, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry I yelled. And, um, I was just frustrated. And then,
Yeah.
Sebastian, the thing he had told me, he was like, Dad, and his just little 4-year-old cute little baby face. He was like, Dad, just be nice. Just be nice, Dad. Just be kind. And I was just like, it made me cry. I was just like, oh my
Mm.
gosh.
Yeah.
Like he was so like willing, like it wasn't even about him like being upset. He was just like, just be nice, Dad.
Yeah.
Um and like, it really spoke to me. Like you can get feedback anywhere. Um
Mm-hmm.
like you can get feedback anywhere from even your kids that
Yeah.
when they're 4 years old,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they have a lot more awareness than you think.
Yeah.
And he recognized in that moment, that a little more gentleness and kindness probably would have been,
Goes a
uh,
long way.
it can go a long way in that moment.
Yeah.
And I didn't like getting upset the way I did. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that one got me so deeply. Um,
Sebastian's pretty wise for his age. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah,
He can say some things that you're like, ooh, way to ground
he
me.
pulls it out.
Yeah.
He just like, he pulls it out, and I'm like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
damn, dude.
Yeah. He even checks Eduardo sometimes, and Eduardo's like, well said,
He's
baby
just
Seb Seb.
like,
Yeah. You're like, you
yeah,
know what?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it when he does it.
Yeah. Me
It's
too.
great.
I'm all Bubba.
um,
But all in all, I would say, honestly, at the end of the day, both parents are important to have in your child's life. You both bring a different aspect and different qualities. You both have different strengths. And your child gets to have both of you in their lives if that's possible. I get that sometimes it's not possible, and I get that, some of you out there are single parents, whether you're a single mom or a single dad. I've met single dads as well. That is actually becoming more and more of a thing now. And so at the end of the day, you are important, and so remembering that role, of how important you are and what you bring into your child's life and what the other parent brings into your child's life as well is just as important. It's not just about you. That other parent has value themselves.
definitely.
I think that wraps it up. I think we're done.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dance party.
Uh-huh. It was good talking to y'all.
Let's go.
Uh-huh.
I am so hungry. All right. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. We will see you guys next week. I'm going to go eat.
Bye.